going to jump on into our show right now because excuse me if I'm drooling, but that's because I just went to Davon Moseley's Instagram page and looked at his recipes. And as I said before, he is a renowned culinary creator, foodie, and businessman known as Royal Eats. And so, Devon, I want to get you to jump in and tell us a little bit about yourself.
For sure, for sure. Well, first, thank you for having me. It's definitely a blessing to be here, and have this opportunity here with you also. Thank you. I definitely appreciate it.
My pleasure.
For sure. A little bit about myself. Grew up in the Washington, D.C. I don't know why I can't talk this morning.
Yeah.
Metropolitan area. I grew up here. But my family roots are in North Carolina, in Scholar Neck, North Carolina. A small town, very humble, but full of love, and I got to witness, my family make a ton of food and I got to eat a ton of food. But, I enjoyed the process of, watching my family in the kitchen, making food and bringing people together, and I feel like that love just, spread onto me. And I found myself, just naturally wanting to be creative in the kitchen. And, over the years, now we're here.
At what point, Devon, did that, did that interest in cooking, when did it start?
I'll say probably around 8, 9-ish, around that time. Like I said, just always watching my family in the kitchen. But, my dad, he had showed me how to make, my first dish, which was spaghetti. I feel like a lot of people ate spaghetti a lot, and still do to this day. But, for him to take the time to show me how to make it and explain, why that's such an important dish, something that's, cost efficient and that can last you, like little things like that, meant a lot to me. So I try to approach every recipe that I look at, and understand the purpose of why it's being made, the occasion of why it's being made, and just those little details, always, pique my curiosity and got me involved with food.
I want to tell you a funny story because you're right. That's the first meal my father taught me how to make was spaghetti, and he's from Texas. And
Mm,
I never knew when I started eating spaghetti as as an adult, I never knew why it wasn't all mixed up.
hmm
Saying a lot of people mix the pasta and then they put the sauce on the top and that's how they eat it. My father's like, no, this is Mexican spaghetti. This is the way we make it. And so I thought all spaghetti was made like that
Yeah.
until I got older. So I mean, it's how do you make yours? I'm just curious.
I mix all mine together. So that's
Yeah.
what I do
Okay.
mine. Yeah, I mix mine together. But I know people that, make the pasta and get the sauce and put the sauce on top, eat it like that. But I like everything already mixed together.
I hear you. Okay. All right. And well, I won't tell you what else he used to put in it, but it was good. It was good. So, you got this book coming out, or that's already out called
Mhm.
Let's Get Into It. What inspired you to write the book?
Man, I think it's time, to have a physical book. I've produced ebooks, over the years. And, every time, I would have someone reach out to me and say, hey, like, is there a physical version of this? Would love to have a physical copy. I feel like people, enjoy having a physical product in their hands and something that, can last, through time. You never know, your internet could be down or you might download it and you lose your laptop or something like that. But having a physical book in your hands that you can carry around, I feel like, people value that tangible product. And I believe it was just time to put, all of my best recipes together and, also create more and create an experience for people to, be able to look forward to, so basically having something that, is garnered towards, my niche of people with novice cooks, but there's something available for everyone, whether you've just started cooking a day or you've been cooking for 10 years, there's recipes in it for everyone, but we've broken it down so that, if you don't have but so much experience, you can have the comfortability in seeing a approachable recipe.
So I see here that I mean, you've got an amazing following on social media, on Instagram, 1.7 million TikTok followers. I
Mm.
mean, how at what point did you say, okay, I'm ready to show the world how to do this?
Mm, well, I feel like that's an ongoing conversation daily. We're having, this amazing support system that I have. I think, probably for the right reasons. I believe that, God allowed me to not be able to understand the magnitude of it. So every time that I approach something, I always look at it as, this is my first time doing it, so I feel like once I see people gravitate towards something I make, it automatically makes me see like, okay, how can I do this to make this better for the next person? How can I continue, this momentum? And just always looking at it as, okay, if people are gravitating towards this and this is helping people and their families, then I got to keep going, So I feel like I kind of have that reset, every recipe I make and every recipe I share, seeing the feedback of people making it and they're enjoying it with their loved ones, and that keeps me going.
I mean, it's amazing. Had a chance once to visit the New York Times, and I found out that the one subscription driver for that newspaper, I mean, they still print a paper, they do whatever, but it's their food section.
Mm-hmm.
People have a passion. I mean, they love food, watching people cook, getting recipes and all of that. And what kind of feedback, because clearly it's the case for you as well. I mean, with all of these followers that you have, and you said the feedback, but what kind of feedback do you get?
A lot of it is, how it was able to affect, their families, people telling me like, oh, I made this for my kid and, they're a picky eater, but they enjoyed it, that type of feedback that lets me know like, okay, whatever went into this, how this was prepared, this was able to not only allow, adults to enjoy it, but kids enjoy it. Kids are very picky eaters. So, if a kid enjoys it, that's, my ultimate marker that, okay, we got one, so just feedback like that. I've also had it to where, different supporters have told me like, okay, like I see this recipe, but something went wrong here, then that makes me go into it and look like, okay, what can I do better to explain it? Because, if I made it, I'm confident in it, in the food itself, but there's something that I need to do to be able to explain it better, whether that's, making sure to highlight, using the metric system or breaking down into individual instructions, they give me feedback that helps me, be better. And, ultimately just once we're able to get it to where everything hits on all cylinders and everyone is enjoying it, that's when we know we got something.
Is there a favorite meal that you like to make? Meaning, is it breakfast food or is it dinner or snack food? What's your favorite sort of meal to jump into?
I feel like it just depends on the mood I'm in for the day.
Yeah.
Like I love breakfast food, of course, but I can eat breakfast type of food at night as well. I'm notorious for making, like a good pancakes or, eating bacon and stuff at night. If I want a waffle or something like that, I feel like if it's good and I got a taste for it, I'll make it. Here lately, with us being in the fall season, I've been really enjoying, braised short ribs. That's been like, a big thing for me, and just finding other different dishes to braise. I have a Dutch oven, so it's been, quite amazing to use. So, just if it's good, I'm in the mood for it, it's the right season for it, I'll make it.
I have to say, when I was going through some of the videos and I saw the braised short ribs, which, there are a lot of us out here that are not meat eaters. And I was so disappointed because it looked so good. And then the next video was something you do with salmon. It was a salmon with the rice no. It was I don't.
The miso.
Yes, that was it. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go do that this weekend. That's amazing. It looked really, really good. And so that one of the things that you said, and you said it here today about home, and home cooking. And, we've gotten away from that because people just don't have the time, whatever, people have gotten away from it.
Yeah.
So it seems as though they have. Now, what you're doing seems to, shoot that, belief away that people are actually interested in getting back into the kitchen. Is that what's your sense?
Yeah, for sure. I believe that the time and availability is still there. It's just about a shift of focus. I feel just in today's day and age, we're often distracted, with social media, what's going on in the world and things like that. Where if you think back, even as far as me, I'm still young. I'm only 27, but I could think back to my childhood, before, social media really blew up. We still made time, to be around our family without, being on our phones and stuff like that. And it's so easy to find, one curious thing on your phone, and next thing you know, you're scrolling for hours, so the time is still there. It's just about a shift of focus. And then also being able to prepare, things in advance. Like in my book, I have different marinades that you can make with beef, with chicken, with salmon, these different things where you could prep this, the night before, a couple of days before, put in the fridge, let it marinate. And then once you get home from work, You know, you could throw it in the air fryer, pan sear it, throw it in the oven, and you have something made in under a half an hour. So I really just think it just comes down to intention and, you know,
Mhm.
being conscious of it and wanting to do it. But, you know, I believe people see the difference in a home cooked meal versus going out and getting fast food. You know, fast food is good, but nothing beats a home cooked meal.
Well, nobody asked me, but when they ask about, how do we end gun violence, you know what I say? What I like to say?
What
A
you like
home, a home cooked meal.
for sure.
To the table. If there's food, they're gonna sit down and eat, right,
Exactly.
together.
Exactly.
And that's why I'm real excited about the book. Now, how is the book divided? What do you created like certain
Yeah. So we
kind
have different sections. So, you know, starting off, we have a section called, you know, back to the basics. You know, in
of
that section, you know, we're teaching how to make, you know, pan-seared chicken, pan-seared steak, pan-seared salmon, you know, homemade fruit jams, you know, like apple butter, how to make actual butter,
wow.
strawberry jam, you know, grape jam, you know, just different things to where, you know, you can get that confidence in just learning some of the, you know, the basics of, you know, cooking and foundational recipes to help you go along, you know. So from there, then we go into, you know, brunch category. I know brunch is really huge. One of my favorite recipes, you know, in that section is called Billionaire's Beef Bacon.
Oh.
So yeah, definitely doing a twist. You know, a lot of people, you know, definitely have eaten pork, but I know people are more and more transitioning away from pork, but still want something, you know, that tastes, you know, similar. And I feel like beef bacon it really does the trick there. So having that in there was kind of a spice and a little sweet, you know, type of bacon. I feel like a lot of people will enjoy that one. And then we have our entrees, we have sides, we have appetizers. We have a section called Food for the Soul. You know, in that section, you know, a lot of soul food. You know, and some of my roots, you know, from North Carolina. So some recipes that I grew up eating from there are in that section. We have the desserts, we have breads. You know, I basically formulated the book to where, you know, it's essentially like having a restaurant at home, you know, having a restaurant in your hands and having these different recipes that you can make, you know, to be able to serve yourself and your loved ones.
Hmm. And I wish. Well, I don't say I wish, but I'm wondering if there was a section in there called "Food for the Furloughed." And I don't mean to make a joke out of that, but a lot of people are going through some really difficult times right now trying to
Mhm,
access food, and with SNAP benefits, um, impacted by being able to get those benefits.
mhm.
But what would you tell people who are listening that may be in that situation, and how they can budget to purchase the items to make some of the things in your cookbook?
For sure. You know, well, first, you know, my heart goes out to them. You know, everyone, and it's not just those individuals that are affected. You know, someone like myself is affected as well. You know, being in the food industry, you know, that with that happening, you know, that raises the prices of everything even more, you know, and people don't realize that some people, you know, look down upon it and just say like, oh, like those individuals that aren't going to have access to it, it just affects them, but they don't realize the actual effect that affects everyone that, you know,
Correct.
just purchases food from the grocery store. So my heart totally goes out to them, you know, and just kind of like my scoff that I did when you brought it up, was just because, you know, just realizing just the times that we're in, and to where it's like you have no choice but to kind of laugh to get through and just, you know, be able to have faith and hope that everything will work out in the long run. But I definitely say with them, one thing that I found with myself and being able to, you know, grow up in a family that, you know, did our best to, you know, eat on a budget and find different things that, you know, would be affordable and accessible. You know, being able to play around with different things. So when, like, if you're using, you know, a dish with chicken, you know, being able to find something that's like, you know, of dark meat. You know, you can make good dishes with dark meat that's on the lower inexpensive end. If you're making different dishes with beef, you know, having something that's, you know, maybe a cut of meat that might not have as much fat in it, you know, with the marbling. So that's going to make it, you know, less expensive. And, you know, baking that in the oven and braising that, you know, slow cooking these different dishes to still have a great dish. And I'll say just, you know, being able to get creative with what you have, and, you know, you're still able to make great dishes, even though um, I know the times that we're in, but just being able to budget as best as you can. And
Hmm.
I know someone like myself and other people in my industry, you know, we're looking to do what we can to be able to, you know, support people, you know, during this time. But, you know, it won't last forever. You know, definitely just keep the faith. And, you know, we're all going to get through this time together.
Yeah, I mean, not trying to joke, but coming up in when I did, and that's where that spaghetti came from.
For sure.
know,
Exactly. Yeah.
make a big pot of spaghetti. You
Yeah.
got something to eat for 2 or 3 days, and
Right.
it got better. Why does that happen? Why does it get better the next day?
It's funny you say that because that's definitely like my grandmother. You know, she stood by that. How the spaghetti gets better, you know, the longer it sits. And I think it's just because you know when you're able to combine like the meat sauce, you know, with the pasta. You know, when you initially do it, yeah, it has a burst of flavor, but the longer and longer that sauce sits in with the pasta, the more flavor it develops. And I just think you know a lot of dishes, you know, flavor develops over time. You know, so
Yeah.
you're allowing something to sit there. I look at it the same way as something was marinating. You know, if you were marinating something in the fridge, the more flavor it develops over time. I believe that same principle applies even when food has already been cooked. So I definitely feel like spaghetti is better, you know, a couple of days afterwards.
Now, you may remember when I first looked at, while we were preparing for the show, and I first looked at your Instagram page, and I said, "Ooh, that banana pudding looks delicious."
Yeah.
And my mom, who's a regular watcher of a viewer of Let's Talk, just put in the chat that banana pudding looks delicious.
Yeah, you know, that's another recipe that was inspired by my family. My dad was the banana pudding maker in my family for many years. And actually it was just 2 years ago when I had developed my recipe when I was working for the recipe in the book. I had, you know, made it when we were down in North Carolina, you know, had a family gathering and I just wanted, you know, people to try it because my dad, you know, he didn't feel like doing it and they kept asking for it. So he was like, Devon, like, you know, I need you to go make it. So I had to go out, get the ingredients, you know, made everything on a whim. And, you know, once I made it, let it sit, and people tried it, you know, they demolished the pan. So that's how I got to be a
Yeah.
banana pudding maker. But yeah, banana pudding is an amazing dessert. I love it.
Yeah, my mother used to make the best banana pudding as a little kid because I wasn't really much of a dessert eater, but
Mhm.
that I liked. I don't know why, and I don't like bananas. Isn't that weird?
I
But
mean, I get it. I get it. Banana pudding is pretty good. So I get it.
um, so you're gonna be. I know you're gonna have. I want to talk a little bit about that. Are you having a book launch here?
Yes. Tomorrow, actually, November 8th at 4 p.m., we'll be at the Barnes and Nobles located in Georgetown, where I'll be doing a book signing. So if anyone wants to come out, you know, it's free to attend. Definitely would love to see everyone there. You know, we'll be having a little conversation as well. So, you know, they'll be asking me different questions. And if you want to ask me something personally, feel free. You know, I'm just looking forward to meeting everyone and just thankful for all the support thus far on this journey and, you know, and everything that's to come.
Two more questions for you. That's good. I'm gonna if we put that up, on the screen so people will know where to come. You're cooking. You keep talking about your dad cooking.
Mhm.
I want to talk a little bit about men who cook, and it seems like men who cook really cook well. But do you feel as though there's some kind of gift that men have in the kitchen that a lot of folks may have or may not have discovered?
I don't know. You know, I can't really say. I feel like it just comes down to anyone versus, you know, whether it be, you know, male or, you know, female, men or women. You know, I feel like if you have a natural love for making good food and you're making things with intention and, you know, having that, you know, that love in it, I feel like anybody can make good food, whether it's men or women, you know, but I
Right,
really
right.
know, like, I think when it comes to men, sometimes it's a surprise because, you know, customarily, you know, it's just, you know, used to, you know, women making a lot of great food. So when men do it and it turns out good, it, you know, it gets highlighted a little bit. But
Oh
you can
yeah.
make good food, you can make good food.
It's almost like you stick your foot in it. Of course, I will say sometimes when you're done, there's like you need to call in the troops to clean the kitchen.
For sure.
I don't mean to say that. I'm sorry, but anyway, what's next? I mean, you've got the book out now. You've got all these followers. You've got people in their kitchens cooking food. What's next for Devon?
You know, that's an amazing question. And I've thought about that for a while. You know, I feel
Mhm.
like at this point where I'm in my life, I have accomplished a lot, and there's so much more that I feel like I can and you know will accomplish. But you know, right now I'm just depending on God. You know, wherever God takes me, you know, that's where I go. So if this is the
Mhm.
last time you see me, or you will see me for years to come, it's whatever God wants. You know, and I'm at peace with that.
Oh, I appreciate that. I really do. I just feel like maybe there's your audience, and I always say this is my last question. And I always ask another one, so I'm sorry, but I could
Oh,
talk to you.
good. Take your time.
Told you. But you know, internationally, you know, I mean, we don't really think about chefs of color from that I don't know, make food or promote it for the food that they make. There are a couple, you know, they're chefs that we have in DC, and also restaurant tours in the area
Mhm.
that are from different countries. But have you explored any international cuisine?
Oh, certainly. You know, I've
Mhm.
been really big on, getting to know more about African cuisine. So I don't have any recipes like that I've mastered just yet, but I've been trying more and more dishes. You know, of course, we've tried different Italian dishes and stuff over the years. You know, that's always been popular, but I've been really developing a love for African cuisine here lately. So
Yeah.
definitely want to keep exploring that. And I've been able to build relationships with different African chefs and cooks, and just being able to learn from them, and hopefully I'll be able to have the opportunity to go over there myself and, be able to learn directly, from the people over there. So that's been, been piquing my curiosity here lately.
So one of the things that I've discovered is there's this battle of the jollof rice. Who
Yeah.
makes the best jollof rice? And so I know Devon's going to stick his finger in that one at some point and take the prize. Just a thought, you know.
It's funny you say that because I've been doing research on that,
Yeah,
seeing, there are different versions of it from different, countries there, like the Senegalese, the Ghanaian, the Nigerian, I believe others as well. And I've tried so far, I've tried Ghanaian and Nigerian. I haven't had the opportunity to try Senegalese yet, but I hear a lot of bias, saying that is the best because
oh
that's
yeah,
where it originated. So I need to try there. But I've loved it all. I haven't eaten enough of it to be able to say like, okay, like this is for sure the best. 'Cause I know people
right.
who have their, their opinion on that, but definitely looking forward to trying more because it's super good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm waiting for that one. I'm going to see it in the next cookbook, or one of your uh, tots on how to make
Sure,
it, 'cause I have no idea. But I really want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for, um, you know, encouraging us to get back into our kitchens, to know that we can take a little and make a lot, and but really, most importantly, to bring family together.
for
I
sure.
like that. I like that. So, yeah, people now are getting ready in the chatter talking about rice.
Yeah, I see that they're saying Liberia was after Senegal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I can't
anyway,
argue. I'm not from there, so I can't argue, but I would take your word for it. Definitely would take your word for it.
wonderful. Well, thank you so very much for being with us. Good luck. I am definitely going to pick up the book because you know it's my cooking time is usually in the winter, not in the summer, and so it relaxes me. I guess it does that to you too, right? You
For sure, for
it's a
sure. It
certain
it has
place.
its stressful moments at times, but being able to make a great dish and to see people enjoy it, that means more to me than anything.
Well, I'm not cooking in front of 1.7 million people, so I don't have the stress that you have. So, um, but I will be watching.
Thank you. I appreciate all your support. Thank you.
All right. Have a good day. Thank you.
You as well. Take care.
Where do you